Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley at sprinkledwithglitter.com. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am sharing 2 cards that feature colorful stamping for Christmas and the holidays. I love the way these cards turned out, and both of these cards feature brand new products from Pretty Pink Posh, including this holiday trees stamp set and coordinating die set. And we're gonna make some pretty simple cards, but add a lot of color for the holidays. Now I'm starting out with some white cardstock in my Misty stamping tool. This is the Rose Quartz Misty stamping tool, available exclusively at scrapbook.com. And I am going to start with this solid tree and start stamping a scene along the front of my card. And I'm using some ink colors from Concord and 9th for this. I do have my waffle flower grip mat in my Misty. That is that green grid that you see there. And I am just going to move my stamp rather than my paper. And in order to keep this from having to be super perfect, I am going to stagger the baseline of these trees. So I don't have to make sure that all of the bottom areas of the trees are the same. I'm trying to keep them close to the same, but I'm doing a little staggering so that if it's not perfect, no one will ever know. So I've stamped my tree in Nectar, Sea Glass, Juniper, Pink Lemonade, and also Poppy. And now I'm adding a couple of details to the solid trees, and these are included in that holiday tree stamp set. I've added the little pine boughs to the Sea Glass tree. I've added stripes to my Pink Lemonade tree. And now I am using kind of the open outline with the trunk, and I'm stamping in a tone-on-tone color scheme over the Nectar tree, the Juniper tree, and the Poppy tree. Now I'll just add a couple of tree trunks to the additional trees that didn't get the outline stamping, and that completes the stamping for the first card that I'm creating. Now I'm working on a couple of cards at once, so I'm kind of going to mix these up, but you're going to see me kind of work through this. Now I'm grabbing this hot foil Merry Christmas set, new from Pretty Pink Posh, and I'm going to use some champagne foil and foil this onto some white cardstock. So I have my Glimmer hot foil system here. I've allowed it to heat up, and I've placed my plate with the design facing up on the platform, and then I set my timer. Once the timer was done, I went ahead and removed the platform from the base. I added my foil with the pretty side facing down, my cardstock, my 2 shims, and then I ran that through my Platinum 6 machine, and that creates this beautiful foiled sentiment. Now I used the Merry Christmas shadow die set to die cut this word. Now if you don't have a hot foil system, you can create a similar look using the Merry Christmas scripty die set. You'll just die cut the word from some gold cardstock and mat it on that shadow die, and you will have a very similar look. Now I'm stamping one of the sentiments from the Sentiment Strips Christmas stamp set onto some Juniper cardstock. I'm going to do some heat embossing. So I prepped the surface of the cardstock using a powder tool. I stamped that in some Versamark ink and then added my superfine detail white embossing powder and heat set that. And it says Joyful Holiday Wishes. Then I took this over to my trimmer and trimmed it down into a little strip. And now I have a beautiful little kind of sub-sentiment to go along with my foiled sentiment. Now, I originally thought I would use that foiled and die-cut sentiment on this stamped card, but I kind of adjusted my creative process here and my thought process, and I decided to create a second card using similar colors, but instead of stamping all of the trees, I would die-cut them. So for this stamped panel here, I'm going to go back and actually foil directly over the stamping here in just a bit. So I went ahead and attached that foiled sentiment to the sentiment strip and kind of set all that aside. And this is where I kind of shifted my creative process. So I have grabbed some cardstocks in the same colors of inks that I used in the previous card project. So I have Sea Glass, Nectar, I have a blush cardstock here, Poppy cardstock, and Juniper. And I'm going to take the outline tree and stamp all of these with Versamark ink right onto the colored cardstock. Now you can see I'm prepping the cardstock with a powder tool before I stamp it because I'm going to be adding some white embossing powder to all of these stamped images and embossing them. And I don't want stray powder anywhere that is outside of my inked area, you know? So the powder tool is the way to go if you don't want messy embossing. Now I'm going to work my way through these colors here, and I am double stamping these images just because my Versamark ink pad is a little on the dry side and I want to make sure that that ink is plenty wet. Now you'll notice I'm stamping all of these first, and then I'm going to go back and add my embossing powder. That's another reason I did a double layer of the Versamark ink, is because I knew I was going to be working through all 5 of these colors and I wanted to make sure the ink was still going to be sticky by the time I got to applying my embossing powder. So I applied the embossing powder to all the colored cardstocks, and now I'm heat setting that with my heat tool. I have sped up the video here. I am not this fast in real life. I wish I was. And then if you find that you have some anti-static powder still on your cardstock, you can take a dry microfiber cloth and wipe that excess away. So now I have all of these colorful cardstocks with those heat embossed trees. And for a couple of them, I wanted to go ahead and add the same details that I added on the stamped version. So on the pink version here, I'm adding it to my Misty stamping tool. And because I had a little bit of warping from the heat embossing, I was having a hard time getting it to stick to my grip mat. No problem at all. I'll just use my magnet for reinforcement. And then I'll stamp the stripes that coordinates with this tree right over that pink tree. Now for this sea glass tree, I'm using the little pine sprigs, and I'm double stamping the ink to make it kind of more of an intense tone on tone. And then once I have all of these done, I am going to take the coordinating die and die cut all of these trees. Now this second card with the die cut trees ends up being more dimensional than the first card. So if you're looking for something that's a little less dimensional and a little more male friendly, then you may want to go with the stamped version. But I am creating both of these cards with the same stamp and die set. So this is just a couple of ways to use this. Now I'm going to arrange my trees in the order that I want them. I'm going to keep them in the same order that I created that first card in. So it's kind of like modified rainbow order here. I've got my pink, and then my nectar is really my orange in this. And in order to line these up, I am actually going to take my Misty T ruler, place it into my Misty stamping tool, and kind of press it down onto my grip mat. And that's going to hold the T ruler in place as I position these trees. And it's going to give me kind of a even surface to line these all up on. Now, I guess I could have done it on the very bottom kind of edge of my Misty, but quite honestly, I thought of this and not that. So this is the way I did it. I'm getting them all lined up. I'm using the grid on that grip mat to help me get everything kind of straight and even, making sure that everything's level. And once I have everything where I want it, I'm going to take a strip of Post-it tape and pick up all of those trees at once. That's going to allow me to kind of move them as one piece and flip them over on my work surface and add some foam adhesive to the back of these. Now I added a single layer of foam adhesive to 4 of the trees, and that nectar tree that's in the very center, I added a double layer of foam adhesive, so it sticks out a little bit further than the other trees behind it. Now I'm using that Misty T-square ruler once again, and I'm placing it on my card front to help me position the trees with a straight line across the bottom. So this takes a little more thinking because you want to make sure that all of those are straight. Or you could stagger the bottoms like I did on that first card with these die cuts, and that would keep you from having to do all that extra work. I say extra work, it's not a lot of work, but doing the work to line these up in a straight line. So I went ahead and added my sentiment that I had created with that foiled die cut sentiment along with the strip. I added that onto my card front. And now I am using the pierced snowflake cover die from Pretty Pink Posh to die cut some blush cardstock. And I am going to mount the card front that I've been working on right onto that blush cardstock. I'm going to also die cut a little mat of gold cardstock just to kind of line this card front just to give it a little extra oomph and pull in a little more of that gold. So I'm going to use tape runner to adhere the card front to that gold cardstock layer. And then I am going to add some foam adhesive behind this layer and place it onto my blush pierced snowflake background. Then I'll take this entire thing and adhere it onto an A2 size card base, and that will kind of complete the main portion of the card. But what is a pretty pink Posh card without some sequins? Am I right? So I grabbed these sparkling clear snowflake sequins. I love these. These are from Pretty Pink Posh. They are nice and flat, so they are perfect for shaker cards, but I love them for wintry scenes and holiday cards as well, because they are a great kind of holiday alternative to my first love, which is the sparkling clear sequins from Pretty Pink Posh. So I'm just adding those with a little bit of liquid glue. I'm placing them using my dual-tipped embellishment tool from Pink Fresh Studio, and that completes the first card, which is the die-cut version and the colored cardstock version. So now we're going to go back to the panel that I stamped earlier, and we're using our T-square ruler again to help me line up this Merry Hot foil plate over the scene that I've already stamped. I'm going to use a hinge method here to keep my hot foil plate in place where I want it on my card front and allow me to kind of like flip it up and add my foil underneath. So you can see I have my hot foil plate there with the design facing towards my card front. I've slipped the foil under there with the pretty side facing the pretty side of the design. So when you're hot foiling, you want to always make sure that that dull, kind of not so pretty side is facing towards your cardstock. I placed that onto my Glimmer platform, set the timer. Once the timer was up, I went ahead and removed the platform from the base. I added the shims and ran that through my Platinum 6, and that pressed this Merry sentiment onto my card front. Now I'm being very careful to remove this because I don't want to rip up any of the stamping that I've done, but look at how beautiful that foiling looks over stamping, and it kind of keeps this card a little less dimensional. Now I went ahead and used an A2 size die, kind of a layering or a nesting die set that I have, to die cut this and trim it down. I added that again to a layer of gold cardstock, and I die cut another one of those blush pierced snowflake backgrounds. I placed another sentiment that I heat embossed onto that Juniper cardstock from the Sentiment Strips Christmas stamp set. And then I added those sparkling clear snowflakes again. So there's a lot of similarities between these two cards. I've added a little less dimension to this stamped panel, but this creates a vertical card, and I think both versions are really fun and colorful options for holiday cards. I love to take a palette like this that has not only red, but also some pinks and some not so traditional greens for Christmas, and create some fun and colorful cards. It just brings such a playful vibe to your Christmas cards. Now, as always, I will have links to the featured products used in these projects in the description at YouTube. So if you're looking for something in particular, be sure you check there. Or you can head on over to my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com. I'll have that linked below as well. Over there, you'll find more still shots, more information, a complete list of supplies, and some information on a blog hop celebrating this brand new release from Pretty Pink Posh. And I think you are going to love all of the things that you see. Plus, there's some chances to win some prizes. And we all love some prizes, right? So be sure to head on over there. As always, thank you so much for stopping by. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed these projects, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications here on my YouTube channel so you don't miss any of my paper crafting and card making video tutorials. Leave me a comment below and let me know which of these two card projects is your favorite. Thanks again for hanging out with me today. I'm so glad you're here, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.